In 1940, a small restaurant called McDonald's opened in California with one simple idea: serve food fast, keep it cheap, make it taste the same every single time. Nobody knew that this simple idea would one day face the biggest disaster in fast food history. Governments would turn against it. Doctors would call it a public health crisis. Protesters would march against it on every continent. And in 2024, something would happen that nobody saw coming. One small decision by one local store owner in one country would trigger a global backlash. Billions of dollars would vanish in months. Entire regions would stop eating there. The damage was so severe that McDonald's had to do something it had never done before. We will get to what that was later. But here's what makes this story strange. Today, 69 million people still eat at McDonald's every single day. More than the population of France. More than everyone in the United Kingdom. The company did not fall. It came back stronger. How? That is the question this video will answer. The attacks on McDonald's never stopped. Health scandals, environmental disasters, worker protests, political explosions. Each crisis arrived before the last one had healed. And each time the world said McDonald's would finally break, something unexpected happened. This is the story of the most attacked brand in fast food history. But the real answer is not just about McDonald's. It is about us. About why we keep going back even when we promise we will not. Stay until the end. Because what you discover might change how you see those golden arches forever. Let me take you back to 1940. Two brothers open a small burger stand in San Bernardino, California. No big dreams, no global plan, just a simple idea. Serve food faster and cheaper than anyone else. But here is what those two brothers could never have imagined. That tiny burger stand would grow into something monstrous. Something so big that entire governments would try to stop it. Something so powerful that removing it from daily life would become almost impossible. By the time the world woke up to what McDonald's had become, it was already too late. Over 100 countries, 40,000 restaurants, 69 million customers every single day. If every person who ate at McDonald's today held hands, that line would wrap around the earth nearly 3 times. Think about that for a moment. This was no longer just a restaurant. It had become a cultural institution, a symbol of America, of capitalism, of globalization. And here's where things get interesting. When a company becomes a symbol, people stop seeing it as just a business. They start seeing it as a target, and McDonald's became the biggest target in fast food history. But the company had a secret weapon that most people never think about: predictability. For billions of people, McDonald's is the place that is always open, always affordable, always tastes exactly the same. And that predictability created something more powerful than any marketing campaign. It created habit, and habits, as we will see, are almost impossible to break. Even when people are angry, even when they swear they will never go back. But before we understand why the backlash failed, we need to understand what the backlash actually looked like. And the first wave did not come from governments or politicians. It came from somewhere much more personal, from doctors, from parents, from a single documentary that changed everything. Now let me tell you about a different kind of enemy. Not a competitor, not a government, science. In the 1980s and 1990s, doctors started noticing something alarming. Obesity rates were climbing. Childhood diabetes was rising. Heart disease was killing more Americans than anything else. And when experts looked for someone to blame, they found those golden arches. But here is where the story gets uncomfortable. McDonald's was not just selling burgers. It was selling childhood. Happy Meals with toys. A clown mascot designed to be every child's best friend. Playgrounds inside restaurants. Think about your own memories. A birthday party at McDonald's. A Happy Meal toy you still remember. Those memories were not accidents. They were engineered. Then in 2004, filmmaker Morgan Spurlock ate nothing but McDonald's for 30 days. He gained 24 pounds. His cholesterol spiked. He showed signs of liver damage. The documentary Super Size Me reached millions worldwide. 6 weeks later, McDonald's quietly discontinued its Super Size option. But instead of fighting, McDonald's adapted. Salads, apple slices, calorie counts on every menu. And here's the twist. Studies showed that after people saw the calories, they ordered almost the same thing anyway. People knew it was unhealthy. They kept eating. McDonald's survived the health war. But just as that battle faded, a new one was forming, this time in a courtroom. And McDonald's decision to fight would become one of the most catastrophic mistakes in corporate history. 1990 London. Two ordinary people hand out leaflets outside a McDonald's. Helen Steele, a gardener. Dave Morris, a postman. Their leaflet accuses McDonald's of destroying rainforests, exploiting workers, and marketing junk food to children. McDonald's has a choice: ignore them or sue them. It chose to sue. The worst mistake in corporate history. Steele and Morris had no money for lawyers, so they defended themselves. For 11 years, the McLibel case became the longest court case in English legal history. McDonald's spent $10 million in legal fees against two people with almost nothing. And the court's ruling? McDonald's exploits children, pays workers low wages, is responsible for animal cruelty. Those findings appeared in every major newspaper worldwide. Here is the irony. Before the lawsuit, the leaflet reached a few hundred people. After 11 years, the accusations were read by 85 million people. McDonald's took a whisper and turned it into a roar. The activists who were supposed to be silenced ended up changing European law. McLibel taught McDonald's an expensive lesson, but the next wave would not come from activists. It would come from workers, millions of them. Fast food is built on one simple foundation: keep labor costs low, keep prices cheap, keep profits healthy. That foundation requires millions of workers willing to work for wages that cannot cover basic living expenses. For decades, this worked quietly. Workers had few alternatives. Unions were kept out. Then something shifted. The workers started speaking. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from working full-time and still not being able to pay rent. These workers were not lazy. They were people working hard at jobs the modern economy depends on, and being told their labor was worth less than a living wage because the business model required it. In 2012, the fight for $15 movement emerged. Workers demanding $15 per hour, strikes, walkouts. Cities across America. Studies found that many McDonald's workers relied on food stamps and Medicaid to survive. Taxpayers were effectively subsidizing the labor costs of one of the world's most profitable companies. But here is where it gets complicated. McDonald's uses a franchise model. Corporate sets the brand, the menu, the training. But wages in franchise stores? That is the franchisee's decision. This structure let McDonald's maintain distance from labor practices while controlling everything else. Critics called it a legal fiction designed to avoid accountability. Here is what revealed the truth. When McDonald's wanted to raise wages in corporate-owned stores, it did so within months. But for franchise stores where most workers are employed, not our decision. Same company, same power. Two completely different standards. The labor battles were ongoing, but then came a crisis that no playbook had prepared for. One that began on the other side of the world. In the middle of a war. October 7th, 2023. Hamas launches a devastating attack on Israel. The Israeli military begins operations in Gaza. Within days, McDonald's Israeli franchise operator makes an announcement. Thousands of free meals donated to Israeli soldiers. McDonald's headquarters in Chicago had no involvement, but millions of people saw the golden arches associated with military operations. The backlash spread faster than anyone could manage. A screenshot, a share, a hashtag. The announcement was local. The response was global. By early 2024, McDonald's CEO admitted meaningful business impact. Sales growth in Middle East, China, and India was just 0.7%. Expectations were 5.5%. Billions lost. In April 2024, McDonald's purchased all 225 Israeli franchise locations, paying hundreds of millions to distance itself from one operator's decision, a decision it never made. Here is what made this different. Previous boycotts targeted McDonald's own choices. This one punished McDonald's for someone else's choice. And the underlying conflict kept continuing. Franchisees across Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia pledged millions in aid to Palestinians. People who built their livelihoods under the McDonald's name publicly distanced themselves from it. The global brand was fracturing along the fault lines of the model that made it global. But then a completely different pressure began building inside the United States. Not about war, not about health, about who McDonald's said it was, and whether its actions still matched those words. January 2025. McDonald's makes an announcement. It is rolling back its diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Supplier DEI benchmarks discontinued. Participation in workplace diversity assessments ceased. The diversity team rebranded as the Global Inclusion Team. For critics who had watched McDonald's carefully, this was not a surprise. It was confirmation. There is something painful about watching a company retreat from commitments made to communities that were told those commitments genuinely mattered. For workers and customers from underrepresented communities, the rollback sent a clear message. Those pledges had always been conditional. Conditional on whether maintaining them was convenient, conditional on whether the political climate made them easy. But the DEI rollback was not the only problem. Between 2019 and 2024, the average price of a McDonald's combo meal rose by approximately 40%. Far outpacing general inflation. A company built on affordable food for working-class families had priced those families out. The combination attacked McDonald's from two directions simultaneously. Progressive customers felt betrayed by abandoned diversity commitments. Working-class customers felt abandoned by prices beyond their reach. For the first time, McDonald's faced criticism from both sides of America's political divide at the same moment. And there was no center left to move to. In June 2025, an activist group organized an economic blackout, a week-long boycott targeting price gouging, tax practices, labor conditions, and the DEI rollback. It arrived during McDonald's steepest decline in U.S. sales since the 2020 pandemic. Multiple boycotts, multiple fronts, multiple communities feeling betrayed, and yet McDonald's was still serving 69 million customers every single day. So the question becomes uncomfortable. Why, after all of this, was McDonald's still standing? The answer reveals something about human behavior most people do not want to hear. Boycotts feel powerful. They feel like democracy in action. Ordinary people using their purchases to hold corporations accountable. And sometimes they genuinely are powerful. But the research on fast food boycotts tells a more complicated story. One that reveals a gap between what people say they will do and what they actually do when they are hungry and in a hurry. There is a very human tension between values and convenience. Most people who boycotted McDonald's did so genuinely. Real anger, real principle, real intention. But convenience is not just a preference. For single parents, night shift workers, people in food deserts where alternatives are scarce, fast and cheap food is a practical necessity. And principles, however sincere, are harder to maintain when the alternative requires more time, more money, and more energy than your day has left. Think about the last time you committed to changing a habit, eating healthier, spending less. How long before circumstances made the old habit feel unavoidable? That experience, multiplied across millions of people, is what happens to most boycotts. Research shows that even during peak boycott activity, the vast majority of participants return within weeks. The Israel-Gaza boycott showed significant early impacts, but signs of partial recovery appeared within months in several regions. And in markets outside the directly affected areas, McDonald's global sales remained essentially stable. 69 million daily customers barely moved. The franchise model also helped. Local owners in Muslim-majority markets responded with their own messaging and charity pledges, presenting themselves as locally rooted businesses rather than arms of a distant American corporation. Here is what surviving boycotts taught McDonald's. The goal is never to win. The goal is to last. A boycott that costs 20% for 3 months is survivable when 69 million customers in unaffected markets keep showing up. But surviving is one thing. What did the backlash actually force McDonald's to change? And what did it absolutely refuse to touch? McDonald's survival strategy follows a specific pattern. Listen, acknowledge, adapt at the edges, protect the core. This pattern is so consistent across so many decades that it is clearly not accidental. It is a deliberate philosophy of managed evolution, designed to absorb pressure without surrendering the business model that generates the profit. There is something genuinely skillful about watching a corporation absorb criticism and emerge looking changed while its fundamental operations remain intact. Critics describe pushing against something that simply absorbs the push and reforms around it. Like pressing a finger into water, McDonald's never fully fights back, never fully surrenders. It moves just enough to reduce the pressure and then keeps going. Since Super Size Me in 2004, McDonald's made these changes. Discontinued Super Size, added apple slices to Happy Meals, introduced salads, displayed calorie counts, removed artificial preservatives, committed to cage-free eggs, switched to paper straws, launched a plant-based burger. Every single change was a direct response to sustained criticism, and every single change left the core menu completely intact. Burgers, fries, sodas, food engineered for maximum craving, more profitable than ever. The environmental story is the same. Sustainable sourcing pledges, greenhouse gas targets, packaging reduction programs. Environmental groups acknowledged the progress and immediately pointed out that a company serving 69 million daily customers dependent on global beef production cannot meaningfully address its footprint by changing straws. The gestures are real. The gap is also real. Here's what this reveals about power. True power is not stopping criticism. True power is absorbing criticism, making minimum changes, and continuing to operate while the engine underneath keeps running. But there is one thing McDonald's has never adapted on, protected through every wave of criticism for 8 decades. Understanding what that is explains everything about how global empires endure. Through all of it, the health wars, McLibel, the labor battles, the geopolitical boycotts, the DEI rollback, the price backlash, one thing remained absolutely constant. The food is fast, the price is accessible, the experience is predictable. You know exactly what you are getting before you walk through the door. In Chicago and in Cairo, in Seoul and in Sao Paulo. That is not an accident. That is the product. And that product is the one thing no amount of backlash has ever successfully attacked. There is a very specific comfort in knowing exactly what something will taste like before you taste it. Not excitement, not discovery, comfort. The comfort of the familiar when the world is complicated, when the day is hard, when you have 15 minutes for lunch and no energy left for decisions. McDonald's has understood this emotional need more deeply than almost any brand in history. Think about the last time you were in an unfamiliar city, maybe in another country, and felt a genuine wave of relief seeing those golden arches on a street corner. Not because you particularly wanted that meal, but because you knew what it would cost. You knew how to order it. You knew exactly what it would taste like. In a world of uncertainty, that predictability carries real emotional value. That is the product. And that is why billions of people kept going back. Not because they forgot the criticism, but because the criticism never offered them a replacement for what the product actually gives them. McDonald's also localized its menu. McSpicy Paneer in India, Teriyaki Burger in Japan, Halloumi Freeze in the Middle East. In markets where localization succeeded, boycotts were weaker, because consumers felt the brand belonged to them, not just to America. But here is what that reveals about human psychology. People do not boycott things they feel belong to them. McDonald's survived everything, not by being loved, but by being useful, not by being trusted, but by being convenient, not by being perfect, but by being everywhere. But one question remains unanswered. Is surviving enough? Is outlasting criticism the same as deserving to outlast it? 69 million every single day, more than the population of France. More than Thailand, South Africa, and Argentina combined. There is something humbling about holding two truths at the same time. The backlash is real. The health concerns are real. The labor exploitation is real. And 69 million customers daily is also real. Think about every product you use with problematic aspects. Have you stopped using it? For most people, the answer is no. That gap between knowing and doing is the 69 million. As of 2025, McDonald's operates in more countries than the United Nations has member states. 2 million employees, over $100 billion in revenue. The final conflict is the hardest to resolve. McDonald's cannot be what critics demand without ceasing to be what its model requires. Every solution creates a new problem. Here is the final twist. McDonald's survived because it understood one thing clearly. The relationship is not between consumer and corporation. It is between a human need and the most convenient answer to that need ever constructed. You cannot boycott a human need indefinitely. Eventually, the need wins. The final question is not whether McDonald's survived. It clearly did. But whether survival at this scale, at this cost, is something worth celebrating or criticizing, or something more complicated than either can hold. Here's the truth that 60 years of backlash revealed about McDonald's and about us. It was never invincible. Every wave of criticism was real, and some caused genuine damage. But it survived because human need is more durable than human outrage. And McDonald's understood that before its critics did. The real story is not about McDonald's. It is about us. The 69 million daily customers. The people who declared boycotts and went back. Who knew about the health concerns and ordered the fries anyway? McDonald's survived by understanding that the boycotter and the customer are often the same person. And the customer eventually gets hungry. McDonald's was founded in 1940. It has been criticized, boycotted, sued, and declared finished more times than any brand in history. It is still serving 69 million people tomorrow. That is a fact about the world, about convenience, need, and how hard it is to change systems we depend on. If this made you think differently, subscribe. Now tell us in the comments, have you ever boycotted something and quietly gone back? Be honest, because the truth is always more human than we admit.